All righty then. This is Mayanah Yisrael, Solonomics 101. We have a special treat today. I apologize for my 7 minutes of tardiness. I got caught up. Truth be told, I got caught up in something. But I thank you so much for your patience. Let me turn this down. And today we have Sister Mayanah. It's been a minute since we
It
had Sister
has.
Mayanah on, although we have teamed up on another conversation. So if you missed that, go ahead and check out Debate Talk for You with Brother Sal, and you will see that we had a conversation, 2 weeks ago? But today we come to speak about the woman are out of order. So without further ado, I want to introduce once again, thank her for coming back to the Mayanah Yisrael channel here on YouTube. Sister Mayanah Johnson, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Tawad, Shalom. Thank you for having me. Thank you to everybody who's listening for tuning in again. Hopefully you'll get something, prayerfully you'll get something out of this conversation that I'm going to have with our sister.
Uh-oh. I know some people saw the title and they was like, what do you mean by that, sis? I love when the titles get rises out of people. So what do you mean by, because I asked Sister Mayanah what you want to talk about, and for those who don't know and don't know her work on Facebook, social media, I mean, sis be going in. You understand? She's very thorough with the information that she brings in a way in which that you can definitely do your own research. So yes, what's up with the women are out of order? Where's that coming from?
Well, I think that you're right. I think that when people saw the title, I saw that it immediately got shared by some unlikely people. When I saw that brothers were happy about it, I think they are, like you said, unfamiliar with my writing. The reason I titled it "The Women Are Out of Order" is because it is a phrase that women consistently come into contact with. We're consistently confronted with this notion that the women are out of order. And it's not entirely untrue, but it deserves a closer look so that we can understand exactly how and in what ways the women are out of order. So the article that I wrote for social media kind of interrogates what is truthful about that statement. Did we get disconnected?
No, sis, I'm here. I had to make sure that the house was in order. We got babies in the background. They be getting turned up sometimes. But definitely, like you said, I want to agree that there is some truth. But oftentimes, depending on who's bringing the information, it's not necessarily to bring true order. It's kind of to bring a level of forced submission or subjugation to a perceived order. So I look forward to hearing what you come up with.
Well, so actually what I'm looking at when I say that the women are out of order, I'm looking at it literally. I'm looking at it in terms of order, the idea of things being in decency and in order, the idea of things having a natural order, the idea of things happening in sequential order. And the issue is, I think that for the most part, when we have, I'm sure this is your experience as well, and other sisters that are responsible for having communications with our sisters, we find that our sisters are occupying a space that they're not prepared for. That the natural order indicates for us that there is levels to all things. You come into the world as a baby and then you grow up. There are these stages of maturation that prepare you for each level of experience. And the sisters that are coming into the truth are being wifed in. They're not allowed to be daughters. They aren't allowed to be sisters. They aren't allowed to be women. So when they're occupying this space of wifehood, they feel disoriented. They feel inadequate. They are easily discouraged. They feel frustrated. Sometimes they're manipulated because they don't have the foundation that order would have instilled in them or prepared them for. So when I say the women are out of order, I do mean it literally. These women who are occupying the space of wife or trying to navigate the roles of wifehood are in a role in a role out of order, out of sequence. These women have no idea what it means to be the daughter of the Most High. So if you ask them their identity, most of their identity is organized around who they are to the man that they are associated with, who they are with the man that they're in a relationship with. Whether or not these are lawful unions were discussed in a previous, discussion. So I'm going to use the term relationship because some of these unions that are being called marriages are not biblically marriages. They are unions where people have, accepted circumstances but haven't acknowledged all of the steps for legitimacy. So in these relationships, these women are asked, well, my husband is so-and-so. My husband does that. I'm the wife of so-and-so, which is important. And it's not to diminish that role, but they don't understand what it means to be the daughter of the Most High. So when you speak with them, they say things like, I can't pray because my husband said I'm not, they need permission to pray. They need permission to think. They need permission to read. And they don't understand anything outside of what they were told because they have packaged their entire identity on the males they have associated with. So it's not so much, I want to stress at this point that it's not that being in a chad with your husband is a bad thing. That's an amazing and beautiful thing. What's detrimental and what is potentially destructive is when women who have invested their entire identity in another person, when that person falls short of their expectation, or when that person causes them disappointment, they have nowhere else to go. Now they want to leave everything that they have been living. They call it leaving the truth. I'm not entirely sure how you do that, but they leave. I don't want to be Israel anymore because this man disappointed me. He's not who I thought he was. And when you place your investment that way and in people, then you find yourself unable to navigate the role that you are supposed to occupy on your own. Your daughter stage would prepare you for that. Your sister stage would prepare you for that. Your stage of womanhood would prepare you for who you are because of who you are. And I think that those steps get skipped. So in the article that I provided on Facebook and in other social media spaces, it discusses why those phases are important, when you occupy those phases, and how you build on them. And by doing so, you are prepared for that fourth stage. And make no mistake about it, wifehood is the fourth stage. You have to go through the first three to successfully navigate that fourth stage. And I say that because when you become a wife, you are supposed to contribute to that man. You can't walk. The idea that you get married and then that's when he teaches you. This is not the stage where you learn on the job. This is a stage where you're supposed to be bringing something to the table. You are supposed to be contributing to that man. The order for wifehood is to be meat for that man. And I think that it's because we are introduced to all of these terms like submission and being meat and being humble without any kind of preparation for it. There's this predictable consequence of disorder.
Wow. For those who just joined us, we're on the line with Sister Mayanah, and I want to just say, she just gave she didn't even get into it yet, but if you really heard what Sister Mayanah was saying, she went to the crux of a lot of the issues and the imbalance that exists. And I would have to agree. I have seen this very thing happen time and time again where people, women especially, say they leave the quote unquote truth. I am no longer, and as she's saying, because all of the eggs is put in the basket, and oftentimes they don't want sisterhood. You understand what I'm saying? They don't know what it is to be a daughter, and they're strictly looking for a man to fulfill everything, like she said, what your father would have played the role in. And I think it happens because we're coming in at a point where the seed stage has already been passed in the natural growth. And so it's hard for people to understand that even though you may be 35, spiritually you're still a baby because you were never taught. What do you
Right.
think about that, sis?
Absolutely. That's actually absolutely how the article begins, and I'll read that portion to you. It says, many women hate to hear of order, but the truth is, many of us are. We're playing dress up in our mother's clothes, desperately seeking to be wives when we never learned to be daughters. When I say we're out of order, I mean it literally. We're not observing our roles in the correct sequence, order, and have reaped predictable consequences. I know that many of you are adults, and some of you have already made many successes in your lives as women and mothers. However, I would ask that you consider your spiritual life separately from your physical one. What do I mean? At your current age, you have likely already gone through the physical maturation process of birth to adulthood. And it's those experiences that shape who you are and how you perceive and receive the world around you. But what about your spiritual maturation? Have you given your spirit a chance to grow and be nurtured properly? In the physical world, if we saw an 8-year-old begging to be pregnant and insisting on her ability and preparedness to be a wife and mother, would we not think this was absurd? Wouldn't we counsel her earnestly and desperately not to grow up too fast, but instead to appreciate her childhood because there are things she doesn't know or doesn't even know she doesn't know yet? When you choose this life, you became not that 8-year-old girl, but her infant little sister. You discovered your toes and fingers for the first time again, and you learned to become sensitive to the voice of your Father, the Most High, and to a different degree, your mother, wisdom, Torah, and law. Your spiritual life has the same need for development. So that is the preface of the article that will later go into the required stages and like a brief description of what those stages are. But that was the introduction, because absolutely I agree completely that when we enter into this new arena and this new understanding of the culture, we do so with this I'm grown and I can handle the consequences, and not understanding that you are absolutely not grown. You absolutely have no idea what you're doing. And you have to be humble to that. You have to, and I say this not from a place of I know all these things. I'm telling you from a place of I know all of these things now. So it's really retrospective information, because I came in at 17, 18. So a lot of the things that I like to be able to look back and say a lot of the things that were able to get over on me, I like to attribute that to the fact that I was 17 at the time. But the fact that I allowed that type of stagnant that information to remain stagnant, and I didn't interrogate it as I got older, that's 100% my fault. Because literacy is not unlawful. Although it's true that women in modernity don't have the same upbringing as our ancestral mothers, but by the same token, our ancestral mothers didn't have an indexed book with all the information prepared right in front of them. They had to do these things by living it. We have literally an indexed anthology of everything we could possibly need to know about what we're supposed to do, and we are being very irresponsible by not reading it. So we do need to go back and say, you know what, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what my relationship with the Most High is supposed to look like. And we don't acknowledge the natural processes. Your daughter-father relationship is extremely important. If you don't have that, what happens is we have a lot of what we're seeing now. Women who don't believe that they have access to their own father. They have men that they're in relationships with telling them that they don't have a relationship with the Most High, that they cannot talk to the Most High, that the Most High doesn't hear them. And they accept that because they skipped the steps that would have told them, no, I'm valuable because I'm the daughter of the Most High. I'm valuable to this culture and to this conversation because I'm the daughter of the Most High. I'm valuable to you because I am a daughter of the Most High. That's what makes me equipped and prepared to be a suitable and worthy and appropriate wife to you because I know that I'm a daughter. I am aware of my sister, of my responsibilities as a sister in this culture. I know what I have to do as a woman in this culture. So now I know how to be a wife to you. I know why it's important to submit to you. These women come in struggling. I have to submit to this guy. Why? You know why you don't know why? Because you skipped the 3 stages that would have taught you that. You skip those stages. So now that you have to be vulnerable to this man, be sent to submit to this man, to respect his authority, all of that is foreign because you came in cold turkey out of the world. Cold turkey. And these men pluck these women out of the world, dress them up in Hebrew garb. They get the costume right, they get the costume change, but that's it. That's it. They get complicated Hebrew names they don't really understand. They create identities they're not really connected to. And then whenever there's a bump in the road, they don't know where to go because they came in through this man. And if the problem is with that man, they have no idea what to do. But if they had a relationship with their father, if they had gone through the sister stage and studied, if they had prepared themselves in their woman stage, then they would be able to say, you know what, there's a problem in my marriage. This is how I resolve it because they've had preparation.
You know,
but they don't do that. And that's why I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. I'm listening. I just wanted to go ahead and jump in there for those.
No, once you do that, absolutely, Joe, because I'm probably being.
Nah, you good. You know, when Sister Mayanah, when she get turned up, so I'm just here listening in the cut. For those who just joined us, we're on the line right now with Sister Mayanah. We're talking about the women are out of order. We hear it all the time. You could turn on any number of YouTube videos, but they're coming from a different perspective of why they're saying this. Sister Mayanah is bringing up some important points. It's not necessarily that she or we, the women, have intentionally gone this way. It's just the way that things are going based on the first teachers. I find that just in line with what she's saying, that the first teacher is supposed to be the feminine principle. And because oftentimes we're waking up into this to jump into a role that the first teacher is not even there to fulfill, who would have taught you these things? And because the man has another alternative, you understand what I'm saying? He has another desire, which is now to bring you into his fold and to make you his wife. He's not concerned at this point with what your mother should have taught you or your grandmother should have taught you. You understand? And like she's saying, this causes a conflict because oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes, experience has shown that now the woman, and I said it before, she's not reading the text because she wants to. She's not reading the text because she earnestly desires to know the Creator purely. She's reading the text because he's saying this is what you should do. And when he's no longer there to be the reason as to why you're doing this, you lose interest. And then you fall away. And so we really have to check our motivation. We really have to check why we're doing what we're doing, because ultimately every soul is responsible for themselves. You understand? Even though we have a collective job, every soul is responsible for itself. So, Sister Mayanah, let's hear about this first stage, which would have been how to be, or which should be. And then we have a question. I saw a question come up. But let's talk about this stage of a daughter, where my children are now, and I'm teaching them how to be a daughter. How does that translate to a grown person who may be 25, 30, 35? How does one go about reclaiming the stage of a daughter that they initially missed out on?
The article states the following: daughter, this is where you learn how to talk, have clean communications, how to pray, and the foundational scriptures, how to walk, the laws, what to do, when, where, and why, how to eat. These would be our dietary laws. It is in this stage that you learn what it means to be precious, protected, and provided for. This is when you understand that you're daddy's little girl. Girls that grow up with their daddies have a different sense of identity and expectation. My daddy told me something when I was a teenager that I'll never forget. He said, "You'll never be nobody because you'll always be Jimmy Johnson's daughter." Reading and knowing the accounts that illustrate all the way that Abba dealt directly with his daughters, heard them, listened to them, protected them, provided for them, utilized them, and interceded for them, gives you the first foundation in your identity as an Israelite woman.
Okay. So, okay, because we're dealing with a very complex system here. You just went into the daughter stage, like you said, the expectations that you have from a caretaker. In this instance, what I'm getting from what you just said is your spiritual relationship with the Creator, knowing that, like in the case of Hannah, you have the ability. And if you don't know who Hannah is, please go to First Samuel and read that story after this. But you have the ability, like Hannah, to beseech the Most High of your own volition and know within yourself that you can be heard. Is that what you're alluded to? Not necessarily your physical father, which many women and men grow up in this space and time without having that frame of reference. Is that what you're referring to be able
Absolutely.
to learn to trust the Creator?
Absolutely. That's what we're doing. What we're doing here is we are drawing clear parallels between the physical maturation process and the physical stages of attachment, where when it's a term in psychology, it's a very fundamental psychiatry. It tells you that there's a stage when you're very young, that's the attachment stage. How infants, the relationship infants have with their parents or caregivers, if that parent, they don't have a good attachment from the beginning, that child grows up very insecure. They grow up very suspicious. They grow up very unsettled in circumstances. They are always very cautious of being abandoned because they don't have proper attachment in the beginning. So in your daughter stage, that's where you have this attachment. You make this attachment to the Most High. It's with, like I said, it's a stage where you learn to be precious and protected and provided for. Little girls that grow up with their fathers and their physical fathers understand what it means to be precious. Typically, fathers who raise their daughters convey that, and they project that onto their daughters. They are precious, they're daddy's little girls. They're protected. Nobody's going to touch my daughter. They're provided for. That man works 1 job, 2 jobs, 3 jobs if necessary to keep a roof over her head. So she understands what it means to be precious, protected, and provided for in her physical life if she has a physical father. When you translate that to our spiritual life, if you're in your daughter stage and you're building that kind of relationship with the Most High, then you already understand what it means to be precious. You're precious not because you're married to somebody. You're precious because you are already the daughter of the Most High. The Most High is the Most High and you're his daughter. Not that you are the wife of the son of the Most High, but that because you are the daughter of the Most High. That really, what happens is that when you come in on the 4th stage, you don't have a direct connection with the Most High. You have a connection by proxy to the Most High. And if you understand your relationship to the Most High as by proxy, when that proxy gets removed, or when that proxy disappoints you, or when that proxy abandons you, you don't know what to do because you didn't have a relationship with the Most High that was yours. You didn't have that stage. You were never anybody's daughter. You came in as somebody's wife, and now you don't know what to do. It's like getting divorced from a family. If the husband is the one that's the son, once that divorce kicks in, you're out of the family. You're out of the family. But if you have established that I have a relationship with the Father, what you are getting when you get me is the daughter of the Most High. That relationship goes nowhere. When you walk into this marriage, you walk into it as the daughter of the Most High. I have something to contribute to you.
All right.
I'm going to be meat for you. I'm not this vacuous bubble head that you have to fill up because I know what needs to be done. Understand this. This is a very important thing that this is why I like to go into Genesis 2 so much. In Genesis 2, we understand that when the man was given this woman, her job description was in place. She was going to be someone who was worthy, suitable, appropriate, and meet. The word meet, and we talked about this a lot, and I think that it bears repeating. The Hebrew word for this word is negendo. And the reason why that's an important word is that although British translators give you meet for it, which again means worthy, suitable, appropriate, or worthy, suitable, appropriate. That's what that means. But the word itself means to come face to face with. The Hebrew word means to come face to face. So when you go into this relationship, you're supposed to be able to reflect something back to that man. You're not supposed to be empty. He's not supposed to raise you. He's not supposed to get a wife, a daughter out of you. He's supposed to get someone that when he looks at her, he sees himself. He's supposed to see what he is meant to be, what the Most High intended for him. You are supposed to be consistently contributing to that growth, to remind him of his purpose. That's what I was listening to remind him of his purpose. Okay. He has a purpose. The Most High created him for a purpose. He's supposed to look at you and see that purpose. That's what he's supposed to do. Not spend all of his time and all of his strength building you up. The 31st proverb, which is the proverb of a woman, explains, she says to her son, give not your strength to a woman. You are not supposed, and that does not mean, you know, what a lot of men try to tell you. I mean, what it means, what this woman is telling her son is, you should not be unevenly yoked with someone. You should not be spending, you're a king. This king does not have time to be training a woman on how to be a king's wife. This woman has to come in prepared to occupy that space. These women are consistent in huge numbers. If their posts are any indication, huge numbers saying, I cannot wait for my king to come so that I can learn. Okay, I mean, unless, you know, this is a highly illiterate society, there's no reason why none of these women know what to do until a man comes along and reads it to them.
For those, Sister Mayanah is turned up. I was turned up a little earlier doing the project. Sister Mayanah is turned up, but it's for a good reason. So for those who joined us, we're speaking about the women are out of order, and we are actually on the first phase of which she's going into the daughter stage. And like I said earlier, I'll just have to agree. I have to agree that the desire is more for the man, and just coming in on what my interest is all about is healing. I realize that we can know things intellectually, but until we deal with the emotional component that blocks the intellectual from actually being absorbed, it's like taking vitamins and your body is not absorbing it. So I think sometimes we know this headwise, but because there is a gap, like we spoke about the attachment from earlier on, because there is a void or a vacuum for male masculine energy in the lives of our sisters as well as ourselves, depending on your upbringing, that speaks louder than what we're saying. You know what I'm saying? In theory, it sounds good, but for the person who is in need of that reassurance from the masculine energy, what to her now represents her father in the form of a man. So oftentimes these women are looking for the man to play the daddy role because daddy never played it. So I'm going to wait for daddy to come and speak to me. I'm going to wait for daddy to teach me. You understand what I'm saying? And so the individuals have to look within themselves and to examine their family life from a child to see, is this what I'm doing? And if it is what you're doing, begin to rectify within yourself that, yes, this is what happened, but this doesn't continue to happen. And I'm going to tell you why. If you don't do that, you're going to attract this negative energy. You're going to attract the man who may potentially abuse you. You're going to attract the man who's going to manipulate you. You're going to attract the man because he smells that vulnerability.
Right.
So I just wanted to put that in there, that Sister Mayanah, she's dropping some science on y'all now. She's dropping some information as it relates to how it's supposed to happen. But I know just based on my studies and interaction that if there is an emotional blockage right there, you're not going to receive that, because still you're going to be posting those Facebook and Twitter and Instagram selfies and of your food and your face talking about, I'm waiting for my ish. Because regardless of all this stuff, I still need that masculine energy of reassurance to say that I am worthy because I never got it. Right. You understand? So, Sister Mayanah, what's the? Actually, we have a question. I don't want to. Okay. We have a question here, and I think it's along those lines. We have Sister Patricia says, May I also add that sisters like myself who are coming into the fold, who have already been out of order, and we don't know what it is to be in order. She says another thing is to have to backtrack, so to speak, and learn how to fulfill the roles in order as they should have been. And then she says, truthfully, learning my role as a daughter and sister now may interfere with my current role as a wife. There are learning curves and potential clashes on either side, and that is challenging. What do you have to say concerning that? She's saying basically, you know, how do I go back? I mean, in layman's terms, and earn my GED when I'm so far beyond that point, and I have now responsibilities of a wife, and I don't have the freedom now to go back and necessarily start from scratch without forsaking my responsibility. If you got that, what do you say about that?
I hear her concern. I hear her concern. I understand where she's coming from, and I can see why it might be complicated, but it isn't impossible. In fact, it's actually urgent. You know, it's urgent. It's what you're essentially saying is I've purchased a car, but I never actually learned how to drive. Learning how to drive is going to complicate my ownership of this car. When in fact that's not the case. Even though you own a car, that you now have this vehicle, learning how to drive it is important. Learning what to do now that you have that vehicle is important. It's not going to complicate your purchase of that vehicle. It's going to make it easier for you to utilize it. It's going to make it easier for you to understand how to be safe in that vehicle and what it means to be responsible having purchased this vehicle. Purchasing a vehicle before knowing how to drive, purchasing a vehicle before having a license, that's not recommended for obvious reasons. Being in the fourth stage without having gone through the first three are not recommended for similar reasons. So to bring this back to the actual case scenario, because you're now in this position where you have to be a wife to someone, understanding that you have a relationship with the Most High, what the Most High expects from you, that you are responsible for. The things we outlined in the daughter stage were learning clean communications, learning how to walk and how to do, knowing the dietary laws, all those things, that how to eat, those are the dietary laws. Knowing those things are your fundamentals. Those are your daughter stage things. You need to know those things. Knowing how to be a sister is where you work out rivalry issues, where you work out how to understand your place in a family, how there's you and there are other members. That's your sister stage. Your woman stage is where you figure out I'll discuss all those kind of some of those details. But knowing those things are all going to contribute to your effectiveness in this fourth stage, because you know what it means to be protected, because you know what it means to be precious, because you know what it means to be provided for. You're not putting that burden on him. When you guys get into an argument, for example, if you get into an argument with your husband, you don't feel completely defeated and deflated because your entire self-worth isn't wrapped up in his opinion of you. You know that even if he's upset with you, your father, you're already of value because of who you were coming into the marriage. So you have that, and you can say, okay, you know what? I need to go and talk to my husband. I need to work things out. But you have the strength to do that because your self-worth hasn't been attacked or deflated. Who you are, you still are. It wasn't wrapped up in his affirmation of you. He has space to be angry with you. You have the confidence to work it out and reconcile. If you don't, those things kind of just break apart, because if everything is resting on him, the moments when he is weak, the moments when he is frustrated, the moments when he can't handle everything falls apart because you're not made of anything but cotton candy. You have no substance. You are not his pillar. The scriptures say that you are supposed to be his pillar of strength. It doesn't say pillow. It says pillar.
Oh no.
You're a pillar. You're supposed to be his pillar of strength. You're not supposed to collapse under every problem. But you don't know how to do that if you didn't go through your first three stages. That's what I'm really trying to convey. Does that help anyway? Do you think that addresses what the concern was?
Kane, I think it illustrated it, and I think it has illustrated it well, that even though it's like going back to school with 4 or 5 children. If you're determined, you could get through it. You understand? And so basically, what she's saying is that it's going to ruffle some feathers. It's gonna rearrange some furniture. It's gonna make you sweat. You're gonna feel a bit uncomfortable, but you're going to have to start raising the bar incrementally in your life. And like she said, certain things that we don't know as it relates to what is expected of you, as simple as your dietary, because the wife is supposed to build up the interior of the home. So therefore, if the wife is not abreast on what is lawful to eat and not lawful, and not only that, what is healthy to eat and not healthy, then you're not doing a service to your family and your community by extension. And so something such as that nature, although it may seem small, is something that you can learn and implement within your home incrementally. So if you're not eating enough fruits and you're not eating enough vegetables, and you are eating, you know what I'm saying, unclean foods unbeknownst to you, prepackaged foods, that's practical, something practical that you can begin to change, because this would have been taught to young children. So by the time, like she's saying, by the time they get to that phase, they already know it. But since we were not taught, it's not something outside of our reach to be able to begin to do and implement. And so definitely, sis, I got that, and hopefully, Sister Patricia got that as well, and those who are listening. So as we go into the second stage, I know we went through it, but what now is the second stage? I believe you said it's how to be a sister.
Correct. This is the stage. This is the stage where you learn your place in the family and how to love and be loved outside of yourself. You understand what it means to be responsible to another person. Your sibling relationships teach you to cooperate and sharing. It's where you work through rivalry and how to learn to have healthy relationships. Reading accounts that show how siblings work together in scripture, the way they may have fought and reconciled, or fought and destroyed each other, or protected each other, are all important lessons. In your sister stage, you begin advanced learning. The sister stage corresponds to the stage when a young person is primarily preoccupied with peer relationships and going to school. This is your focus in this period, learning to get along with others and studying a lot.
Okay, it's funny how you mentioned this. Like I said, I have young children who I'm watching. What she's sharing is so practical. Again, because we are out of order in the way in which we were reared, it seems beyond us. But I'm watching this. I'm watching this as my young children are growing up. I'm watching how they begin to flourish when they feel secure. You understand? When they feel provided for, and then how that relates to how they interact with one another. And it's so true. If you allow an individual or a child to feel like there is no need to vie for resources, there's no need to vie or compete, and that there is enough, they will then have a different attitude towards one another. And one of the wildest things, especially in this way of sister phase relationship, is the fighting over a man.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna be honey. I'm gonna be 100 today. You know what I mean? I'm kind of turned up. Is the fighting over a man and the disregard, many of times, of how that relates to one another, and how women are willing to go to so many lengths, because the initial stage of that attachment, the initial stage of being reinforced that you are special. So now, like she said, it's all bounded up in this man that you're willing to do some grimy stuff. Let's keep it
Right.
100. You understand what I'm saying? You're willing to tear down the inner workings and the structure of the community in the name of that's my man. Can you speak to that, sis, as it relates to sisters and this whole conversation?
Absolutely. What I wanted for, I'm going to first show the progression. I want to make it clear also that these stages are cumulative. You don't ever leave your daughter's stage. It's a stage of foundation that you build on, and it carries over into the subsequent stages. You don't ever outgrow being daddy's little girl. The daughter stage is a very personal stage. It's your relationship with the Most High. But the second stage, the one we're discussing now, is you looking outside of yourself, because the first stage is very personal. It's you and the Most High. It's you and your daddy. But the sister stage is you and the other people that also have a relationship with your daddy. So you have to understand how to work within a family structure, how to love and be loved outside of yourself. And that's an important thing, because saying, okay, I know my relationship with my daddy is this, my relationship with my man is that, where do I put you? Your sister stage answers that question. Your sister stage answers, okay, well, this woman is my sister. She's not my rival. She's not someone I have to compete with, and she's not someone I have to distrust. A lot of women come into the culture and they carry with them the baggage of the world and say, a lot of women say, I don't have any female friends. I have a bunch of male friends. I don't, so when they come into the culture and the men, not all of the men, but certain men, teach them, you can't trust the sisters. Don't talk to the sisters. The sisterhood is, and they grab you away from the one thing they allow you to carry into the culture is a mistrust of other women. There is no sisterhood. Now, mind you, the brotherhood is this impenetrable force. I mean, 9 out of 10 times you are, even if you aren't in a polygamous relationship, you are sharing your man with a bunch of other men. Okay, even if you're not sharing your man with a woman, you are sharing him with a troop of other men, because the brotherhood is solid. The brother, 9 out of 10 times, if you ask your husband a question, if he doesn't know the answer, he'll tell you something like, I gotta ask the brothers. So you always have this, sometimes you have this sense that you are married to the brotherhood, because the brothers don't have the same issue that the women come in with. The women, that's that spirits dropping things. Not only do the women come in with a sense of, we can't trust women because I've always had male friends from the world, they come into the truth introduced to the same fear of other women. Your sisterhood is where you reconcile that, when you start to negotiate the sense of rivalry and put it aside. You learn how to trust other sisters, depend on other sisters, gain strength from other sisters, and give strength to other sisters. You learn cooperation and sharing. You learn these things. You learn how to have healthy relationships. This woman is trying to do the same thing I'm trying to do. She wants to be a good mother. She wants to be a good wife. She wants to be a good woman. She's trying to be a good sister. She's a good daughter. When I can't talk to, anyone else, I can talk to my sisters. Sisters, women who have siblings, understand sibling relationships. I have three brothers. One older, two younger. And so, because I'm the only girl, like, their relationship with me is different. But I have that position of sister, in my family, and I know what it means to have to share with them without feeling slighted, without resenting them. I understand my position as the sister in the family as opposed to the brother in the family. I'm the eldest daughter, but not the eldest son. So having that understanding about who you are in the family, that all happens in the sister stage. Your understanding of family happens in the sister stage.
I wanted to also correct. I agree. This is something that she's saying is not necessarily something that for me happened independent, like she said, of one another, because sometimes they happen concurrently. You understand what I'm saying? Especially depending on your birth order, depending on what's going on in your family. Also, I wanted to add in there that there's certain, because Sister Mayanah is bringing to us what is supposed to be. And I'm always the person who's going to say, okay, what is happening, right? And all of that is important to go ahead and look at the entire thing. In this phase of growth and development, there are boundaries as a daughter that was supposed to be taught. If this child, whether it be male or female, but specifically right now we're talking about female, if the boundaries were not established at that phase, as you go forward, you are not going to know appropriate boundaries. So I'm all about bringing it back to where you probably are right now. It's going to require the individual to assess, and I keep saying it, their current state of being, to understand if you were taught the proper boundaries, if you even know what proper boundaries are, because even though you're a daughter, even though you're a sister, even though you begin to graduate, you still need to understand boundaries as it relates to your siblings, as it relates to your caretakers, as it relates to whomever, in order for you to continue to grow. And so I just wanted to put that in there, because as we're talking about this, some people I see some sisters who have no boundaries. And because they have no boundaries, they want to overrun your boundaries. And this doesn't cause for a healthy relationship. We're talking about healthy relationships, how to identify if we're not healthy, and how to go about restoring that health. So I just wanted to put that in as we're talking about what has happened, what is happening, and what should be happening, and really how to navigate our way over from where we are to kind of where we want to be. So go ahead, Sister Mayanah. What's the next stage after sister?
I want to address what you just said, because I think you're saying some really important things. On a practical level, when we look at the sisterhood, there are two things that I want to revisit. One, in the practical world, again, women come in from the world already with these preoccupations about having to be vulnerable to other women. We have a general distrust of other women coming in. So the atmosphere isn't really right for sisterhood, actual connecting and bonding that happens between siblings. It's not really an environment that lends itself to that easily. The behavior that you're describing, like the behavior of a woman who does not understand boundaries, doesn't understand that the other person is entitled to has an entitlement also, that she doesn't understand the people around her. That's the kind of behavior that is normally attributed to an only child. Someone who isn't a sister. She's not the sister of another woman. She's not the sister of a man. She has no brother. She has no sister. So she's only concerned with satisfying her needs, protecting her interests, and getting more things. And that's the behavior of an only child, because other children don't have to worry about sharing resources or learning cooperation, because that's not their reality. But when you come into this culture and you understand this stage, the stage is called sisterhood, because you're supposed to acknowledge that there are other women involved. These are women that you have to respect. You have to understand they have boundaries. If there's how to share your toys, how to in this case, how to share information, how to share knowledge, how to share I don't want to say power, because that's gonna upset like everything with the male chromosome, but how to understand scriptures. Let's say scriptures, understanding our culture, understanding our history, understanding our place in it, and navigating that course. You do that together, and you learn that in your sibling stage as a sister. And that's why it's different from your daughter stage, and why it's different from your woman stage. It's the sister stage, which is important, because not only is it that youth stage where you are dealing with going to school, but it's that youth stage where you're learning peer relationships. Even if it's not just like, even if you are an only child, if you go to school, you still have other people in the classroom. That making friendships, having peer relationships, all of those things get navigated during, or get they get interrogated, they get challenged, they get worked out in that stage. That same period corresponds with the stage where you're learning how to be part of a peer group successfully. Being part of a peer group.
Kane, I agree, sis. As you were speaking, something just came to my mind, and then I'm gonna let you go into the next stage. Is that also in these stages, when we are not, as you're saying, successfully graduating or navigating through these phases of development, everything sounds good. Meaning our perception is distorted, you understand? And we don't know how in a peer group to associate with, say, the opposite sex, in this case, a male.
Right.
If you don't do that successfully as you grow, every man is the one that should eat. You understand what I'm saying? He doesn't have any qualifiers. There's nothing required except for the fact that you was like, hey, shorty, you look good. And this is the mind frame that, because like I said, of the emotional deprivation that exists, a lot of sisters keep dropping into this rut because I've never able or learned to be able to be around a mixed group and it be just what it is. You understand what I'm saying? We often read deeper into these relationships that need no requirement. But if the woman is secure and she knows who she is, and she knows who she is as a daughter and a sister, she will be more selective about who she chooses. And that's just what came to my mind. I just want to share. But go ahead, sis.
No, precisely. That was an amazingly appropriate bridge to the third stage, because you're absolutely right. Having created that foundation in your daughter stage that helps you to solidify your personal identity as an Israelite first and foremost, instead of acquiring your identity through your male relationships. In your daughter stage, you already have one, because you are not an Israelite by proxy. You're an Israelite by birth and by birthright. In the sister stage, you are expanding that understanding to include the other people in our family and how to relate to them. And you start to build. You're still a daughter, but now you're also a sister. Your baby sister, baby brother has come into the picture, and now you have to work out rivalry issues. You work out peer relationships. You start to have standards and expectations in this stage. In your third stage, right? The third stage is your woman's stage. This is when you refine the things you have learned so far. So again, remember I said that this was a cumulative journey. This is not stages that you outgrow. These are stages that you build upon. So in the third stage, you will refine the things that you have learned so far. Add to that the things really important for a woman to know, such as how to manage her menses, what's appropriate and inappropriate boundaries between unmarried men and women. In this stage, she should be learning the higher arts, such as poetry and literature found in our scrolls. She should be able to begin reading the prophecies and histories with a clearer understanding, or at minimum, be able to ask better questions and know how to research for answers, having been a student in her sister stage. It is in this stage where you should learn about all the women before you, so that these abstract notions of virtuous and submissive and humble become things that you understand and connect to women who have lived the life you are striving for, and emulate the ones who were successful while learning from the ones who were not. Know who our ancestral mothers were, what spaces they occupied, what roles they played in shaping the landscape of our culture and nation as a whole. You will be surprised what you don't know. So that is, in a nutshell, what the woman stage is about. There are things in our culture that are uniquely for women. There are things that are not something that, and this touches on something we were talking about earlier, how women who are wifed into the truth are indoctrinated with what that male's expectations of you are. You have to understand, there's an article that I wrote for social media dated December 16, 2015, where, because a sister asked me, why do I think that so many men are giving women bad information about who they are and what their function is in the culture. And I say to them towards the middle that we are taught from, the answer to sister's question is, as to why we get bad information, we're taught from a male perspective. We only hear about who we are as it relates to the needs and expectations of men. This is not a perspective that is without merit. It just isn't the only perspective we need access to. So that response is saying, in so many words, that when you come in as a wife, you are only being trained for that role. And it's not because not in all cases are the men being malicious in that agenda. Like, it's not necessarily maliciously motivated, but that's how they understand you. They don't understand your relationship as a daughter or your relationship as a sister or what it means to be a woman. Those are not even things that they are preoccupied with. When they look at you, you're their wife. And to illustrate that point, and to kind of take it away from anything that could be understood as a critique of the men, I give the example of motherhood. As a child, the way we view our moms are as mothers. Like, we look at them as mothers. We look for her to be an example of morality and ethics. We look to her to provide meals and help with homework and do all the things that she's supposed to do for us. We understand her only through our expectations of her and how she relates to us. We have no real sense of who she is in her other roles and the roles that she occupies. We don't know. We don't really want to know what her relationship roles are with our father, or her boyfriend, whatever your experience was with your mother, what he requires of her, what she needs from him, if they're fulfilling each other's needs. We don't think of her as a wife. We don't think of her as a woman. Many of us girls don't look at our moms as women until we become mothers ourselves. We don't think about her as a daughter or a sister. We only know her as mom. So we only complain about, make demands about, and assess her abilities in that one role. So when the men come to us and they are making demands of us, complaining about us, or assessing us as wives, that's the role they know us as. We are responsible for that sister role, that daughter role, that woman role, because they don't necessarily understand us in that way. When you when you look at the brothers, the way the brothers are taught, they are taught all of those stages. All of them. When you listen to them, they're able to speak to you with their outside voice and their chest stuck out because they know they are the sons of the Most High. They will tell you to your face that if you leave tomorrow, they are still the sons of the Most High. They are not being shaken. And if you don't talk to them, they don't care because they will go to their brothers. They know their brotherhood stage. They know their sister stage. Their husband stage came after all of that. They know what it is to be men. I mean, if you will not find a man who doesn't know who David is, who Solomon is, who Gideon is. They know all the men. So their identity is solid because they have gone through the stages. You haven't.
Very interesting.
You
Very
haven't.
interesting. You're listening to the voice of Sister Mayanah Johnson. Today we're talking about the women are out of order. Sis, you're out of order. We're trying to go into the realities of that. I went ahead and invited another sister, Tisha Bryce. She was making some very insightful comments on Facebook. So I just want to give you a heads up, Sister Mayanah. We have Sister Tisha Bryce here, and I wanted to see what was she thinking about this information as you brought it forth. Sister Tisha, are you on the line now? I see a mute on your mic. You can unmute your mic and chime in if you so desire. We're currently on the third phase, which is the woman phase, and you made some very, very interesting points, Sister Mayanah. Certain things that women, you know what I also notice is that women try to, as we've been saying, oftentimes wrap up all of these things and try to or expect that the man, your husband, is going to fulfill all these things. You want him to be your girlfriend. You want to talk about things that he's not really interested in talking about with you. You understand? And because you don't have this network established, because you don't have the security of or even the resources oftentimes of referring your mother and your aunts and your grandparents or your grandmother about things that women would know about, like childbirths and NADA situations and things of that nature, you're kind of grossing him out in a lot of times.
Right.
And you're putting too much emotional pressure or expectation on him. And like you said, when he steps outside of that, all things fall apart. And so these are something to really take a look at, especially as we're examining or assessing the damage that is being done and the reasons as to why these family structures oftentimes are not standing up to the pressures that we put on them. So, Sister Tisha, are you there?
It looks like her mic is still muted, no?
Yeah, her mic is still muted. So if you're there, you could definitely come too. But I'm gonna give it over back to Sister Mayanah, and let's hear about that last phase, the phase that all the Facebook memes is about, the phase that all them posts are about, and me showing you that I can do all of these things. Let's talk about where everybody is trying to get to, but oftentimes they try to run from once they're up in that spot. Let's talk about the Isha. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I was, the way the third stage ends, surprised at what you as you graduate to the wife stage. And make no mistake about it, this is the fourth stage. You so do not waltz into this role. You need absolutely everything you collected in the last three stages if you plan to survive this one. The order to be fruitful and multiply was given to male and female. The command that you would have dominion over the things of the land, air, and sea was also given to male and female. But the expectation to be meet, worthy, fit, suitable, and appropriate was given only to the woman. There is no way for you to function the way Abba designed you to if you don't know anything. Help meet is not a word. And that's a problem. People are always trying to be this help meet. There's no such thing. It's not there. You can go check. It's not there. What you will find is a sentence that says, he will make a help meet for him. Meet is a separate word, and that's important because it describes what type of help women are. The Hebrew word for help also is extremely significant, but that's for another conversation. There's no way for you to be a meet, help, or an asset to a man if you can be blown about by every wind and you don't know a lick of Torah. It's absolutely the worst place to learn on the job. So that it's true that, we see all of these, since your mic is unmuted too now. Can you hear me?
I'm here, sis. I can hear you. I'm sorry about that. I see Sister Tisha's mic is still muted. Maybe she stepped away. When you come back, you can definitely unmute your mic and join the conversation. I'm listening. I heard you, and I agree. It's not a good place because the pressure is high at that point to learn the things that you should have already known before you got there, and not only known but enjoy. You understand what I'm saying? Things that
Right.
young girls should enjoy just because, not because I'm trying to be, because then now the pressure, the emotional, mental pressure that's going to come on you because he says you should know how to crochet. He says you should know how to sew. He says, and if you don't really enjoy this, you're not going to be very joyful or at peace in that position. But go ahead.
It's actually what we just talked about when the sister that chimed in chat and asked the question. She's already in the fourth stage. So now it's just, Mayanah, why are you, there's 3 stages you told me I skipped. This is going to complicate the stage I already occupy. What do I do now? It's harder to go back and learn those things. It's hard to go back and learn from scratch, which is why the fourth stage ends with, this is absolutely the wrong stage to learn on the job. This is not when you want to find out, oh, I'm not prepared. That you made all of those posts, created all of those memes talking about your king and you can't wait for a king and you can't wait to get married. So, okay, so now you're in this situation, and while you were waiting to get married, you weren't preparing to be married. And that's a problem. Obviously, it's problematic, and it has predictable consequences because now this man wants you to submit to him, and you don't know what that means. Now this man wants you to be humble, and you don't know what that means. You don't know what it means to be humble. You don't know what it means to contribute. You don't know when to talk and when not to talk. All you hear, and a lot of these men, again, because they're not taught to understand you in any other stage other than your property stage. And so they come equipped with the shut up woman scriptures and the you need to be virtuous scriptures. And that's it. So basically all you're taught is how to shut up and how to just basically cater to them, and you don't understand why you're catering to him. You don't know what it means to be in his house, because you're getting it from a perspective and you're not getting it from experience. the experience. Because understand this, you have to think logically. Do you really think that our ancestral mothers walked into their husbands' houses knowing absolutely nothing? Do you think they didn't know Tori? What do you think they were growing up learning all of that time? They weren't sitting there. You know, I don't think this said. Do you really believe that Sarai went to Father Abram and was like waiting for him to tell her what she's supposed to do? Or did she not grow up in the culture? She knew exactly what it meant to be a daughter, a sister, a wife, and a woman. She already knew those things. She didn't learn that on the job. It doesn't make sense that you think you can do it. You cannot walk into that stage. It's exactly like having that 8-year-old tell you, I want to be pregnant, I want to be a wife. You can't do that. We would absolutely discourage an 8-year-old from saying, you know, this is a role you can do, just by virtue of you being female. Just because a man can seed you up doesn't mean that you are prepared to be a wife to that man or a mother to those seeds.
You know, you're saying some stuff that I know a lot of sisters is not trying to hear, Sister Mayanah. They be like, you know, sis, that sound all good and whatnot, but I'm cold and lonely. You understand what I'm saying? And this is oftentimes, I'm just keeping it real, the motivating factor. But I agree with you in that it leaves one unprepared, and then it leaves a bitter taste in the mouths of these women who, because they weren't in the right position when they raised these children, because this is always my one of my points, is that the children now who come of these unions, like you said, are now going to be compromised because you weren't even prepared to be a daughter, a sister, a woman, a wife, and now a mother. All of these things lead into how you're going to cultivate the next generation and whether or not you're going to give them the substantial tools to be able to go forward and be successful. You understand what I'm saying? So it sounds like a lot, but if we don't do it correctly, if we don't go about it in the right way, as Sister Mayanah is pointing out, and if we don't correct it within ourselves to the degree that we can, when we go to the next generation, they're not going to be able to go further than we are. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to be able to build upon what we gave them because we didn't make these corrections. So it's never too late to admit, you know what? I didn't get that.
Right.
And it's never too late to go back and get it so that you can at least give it forward. So I definitely agree. And I would say, you know, the ultimate after that is then now to become that mother, because that's the seed going through this full regeneration from seed to plant to fruit back to seed again. Sister Mayanah?
Which is why that's the 5th stage. But you're right, the motherhood stage is our 5th stage after wifehood. But I want to address what you're saying because it's not that the stages are insensitive to the fact that we are dealing with adult women with grown women needs and grown women expectations. So absolutely, when you get to women who are in their youthful 20s, in their powerful 30s, and in their kind of comfortable 40s, they they have a natural inclination to want to be with no, I won't say natural. I have a friend that's very good, sensitive to the word natural. They have an understandable desire to be with a man. You know, we find in Genesis 3 that a woman's desire will be to her husband. So it's not unexpected that a woman will want to gravitate toward that male principle. It's expected and it's understood. And so I'm not trying to diminish that need. What I am saying is that you want to be prepared for the fulfillment of that need. I talked briefly a moment ago about the fact that the brothers appear stronger to us because the brothers are not neglecting those stages. Those brothers have a full sense of being the sons of the Most High that is not the least bit dependent on you. Whether they get married ever, they will always understand that they are the sons of the Most High. Their identity is firmly established before they run whatever game they're going to run on you, be it the game or be it the truth. I'm sorry?
No, no, I'm just laughing. I agree. I agree.
You know, they already
Yeah.
know, and they also when they
Like
have
that's another show. That's another show.
that is, but in terms of stages, the purpose of stages,
Okay.
and have that son identity intact. When they feel like they can't communicate with you, they don't freak out. They're not destroyed. They're not discouraged. They have a network of brothers that can replace you in a minute. They do not care. They will call their brothers if they don't understand something. They don't sit at the table and say to you, wife, let's go hash this out because you two know how to read. Let's go and look in scriptures together and build. It's like, I'm gonna go call my brothers, and they go build with their brothers. You don't do that. You have no sense of sisterhood. You have no sense of who you are independent from your husband. Your daughter stage was neglected. Your sisterhood was neglected. And now these men can list for you every mighty man in the Torah and the Tanakh and the men of influence in the first century, the men of understanding and the Apocrypha. They can give you Dead Sea Scrolls, Dash, Jubilee. They know some of every man anywhere in any record. You know that Eve got deceived by some serpent, then Jezebel did something. You
And you're a
everything
wicked
you
woman. And you a wicked woman. I've heard you wicked. You know what
wicked.
I'm saying? And you
And,
wicked. I'm
and
like,
that's
is that a new song? You know, wicked woman. Wicked woman. I mean, that must be a new jam because, you know.
no, it's funny, but you're not incorrect. And that's another thing that's what we're touching on another very important factor. Because we are learning from them as our first teachers instead of from other women as our first teachers, our first introduction to womanhood is very negative. Our foundation and first we didn't have our daughter stage, so we don't know what to be precious, protected, or provided for. So we don't have that. We carried with us this "we don't trust women, all of our friends are men" attitude into the culture. So we don't have sisterhood. And now when we're told about women from our first teachers, women are wicked. You're wicked. Every woman we can think of is wicked. Your introduction to womanhood in the culture is how wicked women are. You can't teach, you can't talk, you can't talk directly to the Most High. I can block your prayers. This is what you were told. This is
King.
what this is your introduction to womanhood. That's why your introduction to womanhood should not be in that fourth stage. You should already know that, because understand this. Not to say that there weren't women who made bad choices and wicked choices in our records. There absolutely were. But that doesn't help you because what you need to know are the women that you can emulate. Who did it right? Who did it right? And if the men are only telling you about all the ways that womanhood failed, who are you going to emulate? This is why you need to study, because if you studied in your woman stage, if you studied in your sister stage, then you would have found the women in our records that did it right. The women that held positions of authority in the public sphere, but knew how to go back home and be somebody's wife. Being in a position of authority in the public sphere is not ruling anything in the private sphere. In that house, that man is the final authority. No matter what position you hold in the public sphere, when you go home, that man is the final authority. That's understood because you have seen it happen elsewhere in Scripture. You understand how to negotiate those two spaces. You understand who you are, why why you are important, and then you go back home and you don't feel like you've lost anything by submitting to your husband. But you have to understand that. You have to understand how to successfully be a wife. Who did it right? Who did it right? If everybody from Genesis to Revelations to the Dead Sea Scrolls to the Book of Joshua and the Jubilee and the Book of Enoch, if all the women were wicked, you really have no hope of getting it right.
Like I said, we got like I hear like 3 more shows out of there. Wicked Woman and all this stuff. But we got Sister Tisha Bryce back. She said she has stepped on away from the computer. Sis, is your mic working now? Would you like to come in on the conversation? You can do so at this time if your mic is working. She says she's not hearing anything from the. Can you unmute it so we can see if you if we're able to hear you? Because if we're able to hear you, then you can go ahead. All right, go ahead and speak for us, sis. I see it unmuted. Okay, we see you unmuted, but we're not hearing you.
That's not. She sounds really low. Is that her sounding low? Or that's not her at all.
No, that's not her at all. She's not hearing anything. Okay. Um, Sorry about that. If anybody is out there who would like to chime in on the conversation, I really wanted to hear Sister Tisha. She has some very interesting notes to put in there. But definitely, if anybody would like to chime in, feel free to do so. This is an open conversation that hopefully we're able to learn and grow from as we go forward. Because we do need to be able to chart out what the problem is, what are some of the solutions, and what are some practical ways of getting there. And it's really day by day, moment by moment, and it takes a level of honesty. You know, we're cracking a few jokes here and there, and but giving the real, but it does take a level of honesty to say, you know what, this is where it is. This is where I am. And like I said, that's my sticking point, is that as children of the diaspora, you understand, of ex-enslaved peoples, our family structure has been destroyed. You understand what I'm saying? Our understanding on what is normalcy has been distorted. The relationship of fathers to, not in every single thing, not in a sweeping generality, but for the most part, the understanding that you're supposed to be protected, that provided for, and not seen as a burden. Sometimes, if we go all the way back to the daughter phase, depending on the way in which the child grew up, especially the feminine principle, if she was seen as a burden, if she was seen as unwanted, as she was seen as less than, this affects her self-esteem.
Right.
So when she goes on to become a sister, her self-esteem is already damaged, because the initial caretakers, even if they were there, they still deprived you in a certain way of understanding who you are as a daughter. And so all of these things really have to boil down to an individual basis, because if we give a blanket statement, it may not be true, and then people get into arguing, well, that didn't happen to me, so to just dead all of that argument, one would have to take this information and just meditate on it. You understand what I'm saying? And see what applies to you and what doesn't apply to you, because it's not just across the board a generality, but we can draw a line of what, you know, most of us have experienced, especially with the levels of, as you, like I said, coming out of a slavery to a certain degree. Children were burdensome oftentimes, especially when they were still enslaved. Children were seen as not belonging to you, that your arm was kind of short, you couldn't do everything that you wanted to do. You understand what I'm saying? The children were forced into adult roles at a young age. They were forced to look at young children. So what we're seeing today about latchkey kids, that's nothing new. When your parent went into the field, especially in quote-unquote American chattel slavery, when your parent went into the field, they put the young child, 5, 6, 7 years old, to sit and watch the other children. One account said that they would tie a string around chicken skin and use it as a pacifier. In case the chicken skin went too far down the throat, they would use the string to pull it out. So these are the crazy, wild things that children were learned and saw too much too soon. And today you see too much too soon. The 5 and the 6-year-old think they're grown because they see too much too soon. You rob them of being a daughter. You understand? You hinder them from learning what it is to be a sister, because they're taking care of their siblings, they're vying for resources, and they're never able to really be rooted themselves. And so that was my little spiel right there. Sister Mayanah, you wanted to put anything else in there?
I mean, once again, you provide the perfect bridge to the next stage, and that's the stage of motherhood. The mother stage, after going through all the previous stages, you're capable of teaching someone else and sharing with those younger than you and guiding them as they should be guided. So that 5th stage kind of does what we've been discussing about not compromising the generation behind us. Even if we find ourselves having to play catch up, we don't have to duplicate that with the next stage. We don't have to keep that sense of being out of order and see it repeated with the generation after us. We can make sure that that generation is in order, that they are observing the proper order, that no one has to come to those daughters and say, you are out of order. The idea, because typically the way it's used is you're out of order, meaning you're not in line with your roles and expectations. But we're not in line with our roles and expectations because we haven't occupied them in the correct sequence. So it's a predictable consequence. The two, it has this is the proper use of the word of the concept double entendre, because it is the fact that there is a disorder among the women that is the consequence of being not having been properly reared in the appropriate order. So the mother stage disallows for that kind of repetition. That if all the things that you have learned in the 4 stages before this 5th stage, you are properly implementing, and if not your own children, because not everybody is a mother. So, you, like you said, trying to be sensitive to people who will say, well, that doesn't apply to me. Not all women are right now in the stage where they have given birth from their own body to another child or to a child, but instead they may be adult women who are in the position to be mentors to someone younger than them. That is still the nurturing principle. That's still the mother principle. If you are guiding someone younger than you, you are taking on that motherhood role. In terms of in the motherhood role is where you can guide people. You are responsible. It's also the first opportunity to understand what it means to have personal accountability. All the scriptures that constantly recall the agony and relief of the woman in travail. Those, okay, I'm going to read to you what it says on the article. The mother said, after going through all these stages, you're able and capable of teaching someone else and sharing with those younger than you and guiding them as they should be guided. Recalling the strengths of various mothers noted in our scrolls, you understand the pain and sacrifice of motherhood. All the scriptures that constantly recall the agony and relief of a woman in travail means something to you. Your motherhood stage is your first opportunity to understand what it means to give and protect life in terms of personal accountability. In your sister stage, you were sharing things. That's learning how to be cooperative. But in your mother stage, you are learning how to convey protection. In the daughter stage, you were being protected by your father. You were learning how to be precious by your father. Your father was providing for you. So you got protection, being precious, and provision from that father principle. You are now in this mother principle. So you are conferring the concepts of being precious and provided for and protected to someone else. This is your personal accountability to someone outside of you that is different than your cooperative understanding with someone else in your sibling stage. Personal accountability means that someone is depending on you and you are accountable to the protection of that person and how they view themselves. As mothers, we are very cautious about craft, or we should be, because not all mothers are, but we should be cautious of crafting a child's self-worth. How that child feels about themselves will inform the decisions that they make going forward. What they allow to happen to them will be informed by what they think they deserve. And in your mother stage, you are cultivating that sense of self-worth. I mentioned that all the scriptures that constantly recall the agony and relief of a woman in travail means something to you. When we read in our records, be it the Apocrypha or the Tanakh or any of our other records, there's this image of the woman in travail. That's the woman who is about to give birth, the woman that's in labor. So this analogy is given consistently throughout our records of a woman who is in labor and what it means to go through all of that pain and then have the relief of the child being born. You know, there's that pain and then there's a wow, the child is here. And until you come into that stage, you don't really, it doesn't mean as much to you to read that, you know, because that you're not connecting to that. Your head is not in that space. So it kind of sounds good. But when you yourself put yourself in the position where you are accountable to someone else's sense of self-worth, someone else's sense of being protected and provided, you are providing that personal accountability kicks in. That makes sense to you. When the Most High tells you that his love for Israel is like a woman in travail, it makes sense to you. Wow, I can totally connect to that. When the 31st proverb, the woman refers to her son as son of my womb, son of my vows, that's powerful to you. Son of my womb, not just, and she's making such a clear connection to her motherhood bond. He's not just a son in general, like son. He's the son of my womb, the son of my vows. It's powerful. As a powerful feminine principle and connection that she's saying that this is how I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you not as some little boy, but as the child that came from my body, the child that is a product of my vows. That's who you are. That's your mother stage. For you to understand the woman speaking in the 31st Proverb, to understand what that means to her, you have to understand this fish.
Okay. That's very powerful. For those who just joined us, my name is Amuna Yisrael. This is The Women Are Out of Order with Mayanah Johnson. And those who are, I want to thank everybody who's joining us at this point. Sister Mayanah is definitely bringing in a comprehensive way the stages of which we are able to derive this title, The Woman is Out of Order, and how it is that hopscotching through the stages could cause a lot of the issues that we see. But as you were speaking, what came to my mind is, I don't know if we were remiss or looked at over it, but as backtrack to the daughter phase, as a lot of emphasis was put on the relationship of the daughter to the father, I would like to also add to put into the conversation that the very importance of the daughter to the mother in that daughter phase, because it means something different in being a daughter to your father than to be a daughter to your mother. And this balance between the two is what you're going to need, because oftentimes you may see a woman who grew up without her mother, and she doesn't know how to now, when she gets to the mother phase, be that mother, because she was not shown, she did not have a working model. In the same way, she doesn't know what to expect from a husband because she was not exposed to a father. So just like I was reading today in the Proverbs, on the Proverbs 6, Mishle Proverbs for today, Solomon is basically saying, listen to the instructions of your mother and your father. Bind them around your neck. So it is these dual instructions. Each one is going to show you a different aspect of what you need to know to have a balanced life. So as you were speaking, that just came to my mind so that we can actually cover all bases to understand that no one exposure is greater than the other. If we're talking really about balance and how to go forward in healing, because some women don't have good relationships with their mother, and this is the source of the reason why they don't get along with other women. You understand what I mean? So sometimes it's not necessarily the father. Sometimes it's the disorder that exists with that feminine principle, whether or not your mother wasn't loving, whether or not she wasn't there, whatever. So it's all of these things as it relates to returning back and understanding what a working organism or family unit should really look like. So I just wanted to put that in there. But go ahead, Sister Mayanah.
I want to say absolutely, and that you're right, and that when you look, when the article is referenced on social media, the preamble that I read to you actually does end that way. It says, when you choose this life, you became not that 8-year-old, but her infant little sister. You discovered your toes, your fingers again for the first time. You learned to become sensitive to the voice of your father, the Most High, and to a different degree, your mother, wisdom, Torah, and law. So the feminine principle, the feminine guiding principle, isn't neglected in the article. It's absolutely understood that you're in a two-parent household. You are dealing with your father, and you are dealing with wisdom, Torah, law, your mother. So that is something, you're absolutely correct, has to be understood and brought to the forefront, because you cannot have one without the other. The Most High, even in all of his communications with us, even when I was demonstrating to you in the motherhood stage, his analogies are not purely masculine. When he's discussing a lot of things, he's talking like he's comparing it to a uniquely feminine concept. The woman in travail is something that only another woman is going to potentially understand. A man will never understand what it is like to give birth. But this is the analogy that the Most High uses. It is a uniquely and specifically feminine analogy. He's bringing to light, and that shows you, that's another way that you understand. By reading these scriptures, you pick up on these incidentals, that the Most High is not talking just to men. It cannot be that he's explaining things to a purely masculine audience by using all of these feminine principles.
Correct.
I would not, if I was trying to communicate to a group of men something, I would not use, it feels like having cramps when you have your period. That's not going to mean anything to them. You don't understand that at all. If you tell a man, you're not getting through to a male audience using a feminine principle. But the Most High uses, not in just one place, but again in the Apocrypha, in the Dead Sea, there's always this idea of a woman in travail that can only be appreciated by other women. It can only be appreciated by women. So the feminine principle is not neglected at all. But it's not something, but understand, this is a conversation between you and I. The sisters listening now are at the table with two women understanding these things. It is not likely that their male teachers are going to tell them that the Most High is using all these feminine analogies, that the Most High is speaking to you. They're missing out on that perspective. And again, I don't believe that it's necessarily deliberate or malicious. It's just that's not what they were taught. So they don't know how to teach it to you. They're not looking for that. So they're not sensitive to that information. And they're certainly not going to transmit it or translate it or transfer it to you, because they don't have it. So you miss out on those things by depending on a masculine perspective on how to become a feminine principle. You can't do that. You cannot be trained on womanhood from a masculine perspective.
You stepping on some toes now, Sister Mayanah. I mean, they're gonna call us those two sisters. You know what I mean? They're gonna be like, watch out for them. But the reality is, this is common sense. You understand what I'm saying? And this is part of our history that has been taken away or destroyed based on our experience in our past. You understand? And as we come today, like I always say, the practicality of what she's saying is real talk. And we just have to be honest with ourselves that, okay, yes, true, a man can never really tell you how to be a woman. And people, they attribute it on the other side. A woman cannot totally teach a man how to be a man. Right. But no one says on the other side that a man cannot totally teach a woman how to be a woman. Exactly. And even as it relates to these scriptures. So you are 100% correct on that. And as we restore or repair the breach, so to say, and repair these erroneous thought processes and doctrines that lead us to believe that women are not to teach. By the way, plug, we're going to be having this conversation tomorrow on Brother Sal's Debate Talk for You platform, where I'm the co-host. We're going to have Sister Mayanah and brothers and sisters have this conversation. And the reason is because that thought process is what has us where we are, where the women are not supposed to teach or even speak or even do anything. And because the thought is that way, women, they buy into that. And so the man does not tell you what you need to know to be the best you. So all of those things are going to be under the microscope. Sister Mayanah, I understand there's one last phase up in here after motherhood. What is that phase, and how does one gracefully enter into that space? But before I say that, I wanted to say I agree. Some women may be coming into this beyond the motherhood phase or beyond the flower of their age. You understand what I'm saying? And they wonder, well, how can I be a mother? I already did that. My children are grown. I didn't know this stuff. I feel so bad. I'm going to cry. No, not necessarily. There is so many children out here that needs, like she said, that surrogate mother. that wisdom that you have to offer. So if we think outside of our own personal scope, there's much that can still be done and needs to be done. So I just wanted to put that in there and second that motion. So go ahead, sis. How does one
Absolutely.
gracefully slide up into this next phase of development?
Well, finally, the widow or elder stage, because if you don't get married, then you can't be a widow, but you can remain married and just go into this elder stage. This is the stage where you get some reciprocity on all of that work. Widows are notably cared for by the entire community. If they're not married to a near kinsman who's obligated to her, the elder women are given a great deal of respect, provided she is respectable. In this stage, your studies become deeper. You find that you are revitalized by young women who come in behind you, bright-eyed and full of curiosity, just like you were when you discovered at first, your fingers and toes and belly button in the truth. Widows and elders have a deep sense of accountability and a heavy burden of living well, so that the younger women can trust them to hold their hand through the previous 5 steps. So basically, in so many words, what the 6th and final stage does is that, whereas in the motherhood stage, you're giving a lot. It's a lot of giving. And in the 6th stage, there's that sense of reciprocity. You get a little bit of that payoff in your elder stage, because when we look at our records, the elder, we have the widow, the orphan, and the poor are cared for by the community. Elder women are sought out for their, even if you're not a mother, the elder women, the older aunt, the women who are widows and don't have, and were never redeemed, didn't go through the levirate process, so they're not married anymore. The elder women at the gate. These women are sought after because of the wisdom they have accumulated through experientially through the other 5 stages. So your elder stage, where you get some of that reciprocity, you get the sisters come to you and they depend on you. They depend on you. They respect you. They have a affinity for you. It's a very affectionate stage. I'm grateful that I get to enjoy that stage. I have a lot of beautiful, beautiful young women that care very deeply about every little, whether or not I'm okay. If I'm quiet for too long, I will get a call. Everything will blow up in every possible platform. Mayanah, are you okay? So it's pretty cool. That last stage is where you get a lot of that payback for all those years that you were miserable, working strong, and but I don't want to say miserable, because Mona is correct to say that you should be enjoying your sisterhood stages and your daughter stages. There are moments of really just like you look back on your life and you look back at your teenage years hanging out at the park and having time with your friends. It's a good time. But the 6th and final stage is a very solemn stage, and it's because that issue of respect is only conveyed to you or conferred to you if you're respectable. You have to be able to prove with your life that this is something that other people can trust you with. If you're a gossip, if you had not successfully completed your sister stage and you still think it's cool to gossip the business of your sisters, then nobody's going to trust you as an elder. No one's going to come to you and confide in you. These sisters that are having trouble in all these other stages, they don't feel like they can talk to you, because you're going to put their business out there somewhere, or you're low-key talking about them. Nobody's going to trust you as an elder. And that 6th stage is an important stage. It means that you have successfully completed that sister stage. You understand what it is to be a sister. You understand the accountability of that mother stage. It has less to do with your wife stage, but that woman stage, that sister stage, that mother stage, all of that gets culminated in that 6th stage where you're a widow or an elder. That widow is taken care of by the community. The reason why the community gets together and takes care of the widow is because womanhood is perpetually protected in our culture. I mean, perpetually, from from daughter to the very final stages, the community is always very invested in the health of the women in our culture. So we are perpetually protected from our father's house to our husband's house to the moments where there are no other types of provision. The community will step in and take care of you. So the sixth and final stage is that stage of that taking personal accountability to another level and kind of continuing it in it and getting some reciprocity from it. So that's the sixth stage, that widow elder stage.
You know, for those who are listening, thank you for joining us. This is Sister Mayanah and Amuna having this conversation. We've had several conversations in the past. If you missed it, you can go to the YouTube channel and check it out. This one for me, you can hear the thought and the research and the like I said, the thought that was really put into this. It's not just for us to be on here entertaining you, because you know we could just call each other and then we could have this conversation. You know what I'm saying? So you know the fact that I'll be like, yo, Mayanah, what's up? And we could have this conversation, but we came online to share this with you, and my prayer is that you look within yourself. If you haven't been taking notes, go back and look within yourself and be able to substantiate it for yourself. See if you can recall and see the practicality or the wisdom and the information that was just brought forth. And if you have children, look at those stages and growth of development. I asked the other day on social media, what are the stages of development? Because when we look in, when we look in nature, we can see what Sister Mayanah just went through paralleled. You understand what I'm saying? And you don't see a sprout having seed. You feel me? It goes through different stages. It grows roots, and then it grows up, and then it flowers, and then it has fruit, and then the fruit. You understand what I'm saying? All of these are phases, even in nature. And we are fruit of the womb. Right. You feel me? So therefore, because we are fruit of the womb, it is to be expected that you're not going to be some 5-year-old child bride. You are going to go through the stages, as she was saying. Let me see if I can remember them. Hold on, because I was in class myself. You had the daughter phase, right?
Right.
And then you learn to become a sister.
Right.
Yeah. And then you learn to become a woman.
Right.
And then you learn to become a wife.
Right.
And then you learn to become a mother.
Amen.
And then you go into the elder or the widow phase. And she just broke down 6 phases beautifully in this conversation. And my thing is, because healing, wherever you got stuck, and I said this a couple of times, go back and revisit where you may have got stuck or where you may have skipped a step. I'm teaching my oldest daughter how to do math. And for me, it's the most difficult thing because you have to, it's not like you have to get to where she is. She over there waving at me. And systematically, it's not like some haphazard thing. It's systematically from the eyes of an 8-year-old. Try to walk her through the steps. So if she doesn't know addition and subtraction, you could guarantee she ain't gonna know how to divide or multiply.
Right.
You understand? So when I talk about practical, for me, this is my 3rd child teaching to write from not knowing how to do anything. It is very trying. It is a lot of investment, like she said, of time and energy. But this last week, when I saw my baby sat down, the 4-year-old, and said, "Mommy, look," and now he's spelling, I'm like, "Oh, hallelujah." But
right.
It's incremental. And this is the same thing about our unseen development, our emotional development, our mental development, our spiritual development. It's unseen, but that doesn't mean it doesn't need to be cultivated. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't need to be attended to each day in order for us to progress through these steps. So if you didn't hear the steps, go back and listen to the steps, write them down, and give yourself a little journal. You know what I'm saying? And begin to really be honest with the fact that, did you get this? Were you lacking it? Do you really know how? And once you be able to do that for yourself, then you can hold on to how to better yourself in these certain areas So, Sister Mayanah, before you go, that was my little, you know, every minute I got to go on a soapbox every now and then.
I
But
love it.
do you have anything else to say? Because I
love
think
it.
it was a great conversation.
In closing, I was going to give, but first I want to really go back and pay attention to what you just said. I think that the analogy that you gave about the sprout and the flowering and the fruit and the root were all important, and I think that it's even more important because we notice that that kind of analogy is peppered throughout our records because as a people we were an agricultural people, so we use a lot of agricultural metaphors. But this is what, because you did provide that, I would like for the women to really visualize this. When you get the fruit, right? If the fruit had always been fruit and it never had the experience of having roots, that fruit makes no sense. A fruit that has never had roots cannot be. It cannot be, because when you become a sprout, you are a sprout that has roots. There's the reason that there is this order. The Most High doesn't do anything for no reason. Okay, because if the end goal is for you to have an orange, that He could just pop oranges out of everywhere. But because of the fact that this is something that is repeated in nature and everything that He creates, He shows us there's an order to things. There's an order to things. The fact that at the end of, for us, it's not important for us that that orange at some point was a tree on a root. For us, we don't care because we don't eat the root. We eat the fruit. For the men, it's the same. The men aren't as invested in whether or not you at one point were rooted, because for them, they're looking for a wife. You're the one that benefits from having roots, from having grown, from having that, from having those stages, so that you now become the thing that can nourish that man. But all of those things that before they were fruit, before they were in the bowl on the table, used to have roots. They came from somewhere. You coming in your fourth stage are coming from nowhere, out of nowhere. And so you're lost. You're disconnected. It's like a flower that has been plucked from the ground. Once it's plucked from the ground, if it, that's when it loses everything. It's when it has its roots for. That's how it began to flower. You need to appreciate all of those steps and not feel like I'm 30, I'm grown. I don't need to be nobody's. I already have a relationship. You don't get to tell me that I need to go back and have a relationship.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I want that relationship. That relationship is important. If you are coming in, sit down in your big girl chance. I want to talk to my daddy first. I'm not ready to date. I want to hang out with my daddy.
Oh no, you didn't. Huh? I said, oh no, you didn't.
Yeah, with your daughter, and your daughter says boys are icky. I'm up to boys. Right now, I want to hang out with my daddy. I want to be under my daddy. Other boys are icky. I don't want to be with them. You need to have a period where and this goes back to what we're talking about. The women in their adult, I'm grown stage are thinking about, I'm lonely. And let's keep it real. I'm horny. I want to do some stuff. Yeah, I'm a grown woman. I have grown woman needs. And these are the women that we're talking to right now. These are the women that are listening now. We're actually not talking to 8-year-olds. We're talking to women in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s, and they have real needs, like real pressing needs.
Yeah, your real pressing needs. Let's keep it up. And this is where we about to get real. You know what I mean? We've been real, but here's the thing.
We're not talking to, we're talking to spiritual 8-year-olds. We're talking to physical grown women. You know what I'm saying? They're dealing with their menses right now. They're listening to their biological clock click right now. You know what I'm saying? They trying to get to stuff right now. They're lonely right now. They want to Netflix and chill right now.
Netflix and chill. I can't.
They want to do that right now. Okay.
And what you're speaking about, like you said, is bringing it right on home for those who just joined us. As we close out this conversation, is that impatience, because this is part of the growth and development. That when we have that impatience, it is the natural body telling us something. At the same time, we often write checks that our behind cannot cash because we are not understanding that, yes, even though this may be pressing in my mind and my body, if I go into a space that I'm not able to sustain, it's going to crush me.
Yeah.
And so learning patience, learning to, I'm not going to totally ignore that reality, but some people say, I'm waiting on, the Most High, but not really. And then
Yeah.
5 months later, 6 months later, in some cases, 2 months later, oh, Most High, get me out of here. This person is crazy.
Yeah,
And so,
exactly.
and so if we take the advice, this is for those, because sometimes when I was coming, there wasn't that many people giving no real advice. I'm just going to keep it 100. You understand what I'm saying? And we're not supposed to not become stumbling blocks and put stumbling blocks before the blind. And sometimes when we come into this space, we are blind. We're blinded by our own body's messages. We're blinded by our own insecurities. We're blinded by whatever is going on in our mind and heart. And so today you can say for a surety that you have heard, slow down.
Right.
You have heard, take a step back. You have heard, reassess your reality. Because when we go into things and then without really, it says the wise perceive danger and hide themselves. And if you are hearing that there are predators out there, if you are hearing that there are people that are waiting to manipulate you and you continue to go anyway, then what recourse, really is there? And so real to real, like she said, all of those stuff is real and present, and no one is not saying no, but not doing it and being like, oh man, woo, I dodged that bullet, is better than going in there and doing it. So yes, take 5-6 months. If you're brand new, please, you need to sit down and learn some stuff. And I remember that was told to me when I first walked into this space. And at that point, you said the same thing. What? Please give me a break. But now in retrospect, you understand that you really don't know what you think you know, and it's going to take time. So once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Sister Mayanah, you want to say any words before we go?
Yeah, but just at the closing of the article reads, pretty much it goes back, many women hate to hear the women are out of order, but the truth is many of us are. And until we stop accepting things out of sequence, we will always be out of order because we're taking on roles we were never properly prepared for. It's true that we don't have the luxury of being born in this truth like our ancestors, but they didn't have the convenience of an index book with everything laid out for them either. As you study, you will find that our records describe Israel in all of these ways. Israel is the daughter, the sister, the woman, the wife, and the mother, and arguably even the elder. Pretty cool, right? If nothing else, take from this lesson, take the words that my daddy gave me with you. You'll never be nobody because you'll always be the Most High's daughter. And although I end the article on that note, I do want to go back and show you what I say in the penultimate paragraph, which is that as you study, you will see that Israel, our nation, our very culture is described in these feminine terms. The very same stages that I have so meticulously gone over with you are paralleled by the Most High in his discussion of Israel. When he discusses Israel, Israel is the daughter, the sister, the woman, the wife, and the mother. These are not, I'm not making up these spiritual parallels. I mean, granted, I put it in and I organized it in this way for you, but I want you to know that this is not just Mayanah, trying to create random parallels, but the fact is that you can see it in our scripture. If you permit yourself to study, it's something you have to give yourself permit. I'm going to make this point because it's important. Give yourself permission to study.
Okay.
A lot of women have accepted that they don't have the right to communicate with these records. They don't have the right to communicate with the Most High. You have accepted that you don't have access to these records. So the first thing you need to do is give yourself permission to engage. And once you do, you will see. If you have any idea, we talked before about how powerful it is that there's an analogy that's repeated throughout our records that are going to be uniquely understood by women. The Most High is talking about a woman giving birth. That's something that a man will never understand on the same level. Doesn't even have the potential to understand on the same level. And then you see that that this is not a anomaly. This is not a exception to the rule. That there in other ways and in other analogies and in other metaphors, the Most High is talking to you. He's saying, look at Israel as a daughter. These men will never be daughters. Israel and Judah are sisters. This is not the brotherhood. This is a sister. These are sisters. Brothers, Judah and Israel are sisters. Israel is referred to as the woman. Israel is the wife. Israel is the wife of the Most High. Israel is the mother. She's that woman in travail. Israel, as a nation, is supposed to be a beacon unto other nations. So even in this state, she's the elder. You understand? So all of these things that I'm telling you, I'm not telling you this to gas you, and try to make you feel more, more important or more special than you really are, or to upset or usurp anything from the brothers. I'm providing you with what's already yours. The Most High has already put this in place. It sounds new to you because you didn't study.
All right, now. That's the voice of Sister Mayanah. Like I said, we got to do this more often. I'll be running, but I'm like, man, it's been a minute, sister. So we had to do this again. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I always enjoy having it on and having these conversations. If you're out there, you have something to add to the conversation. I'm the community conversation lady. You know what I'm saying? Because I just like, instead of finding points of contention, finding points where that we can agree and we can further our understanding. You understand? So that's me. If you always see me on social media, I'm always talking about community conversation because that's what it's really for me about. So I just want to thank Sister Mayanah for coming on. We're going to be having another community conversation tomorrow. So check our social media for it. It's going to be 8 o'clock on Debate Talk for you with Brother Sal Showtime. So I hope that you join us in that conversation as well, as we get some edification and shining some light on some of these misnomers that exist within our community. So once again, we're looking for balance. Like she said, it's not about gassing you. It's not about the woman is, God. It's not about exalting anyone above anyone, but it is about bringing us back into order and alignment, first with the Creator and then within our human family. And so all praise be to the Most High, the Holy One. Once again, thank you for tuning in. My name is Mayanah Israel, and this is Solonomics 101. Shalom.
Shalom.